Hello YouTube, this is shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, bringing you yet another wrestling review. I'm of course joined by my faithful cohort and fellow internet superstar, Joe. Say hi, Joe. He's got the shits. Well, it's Monday night, you know what that means. Time for some Raw. It's the go-home show before this Sunday's SummerSlam, with the most important title match in recent history, if not all of the history of the WWE. Will it live up to the hype? I got my notes. Let's get started. Triple H comes out to assert his authority as the new COO of the WWE. He says that this Sunday's title match between Cena and Punk will be the most important match in the history of the WWE, which I'm inclined to agree. So now, to ensure that this will be a fair matchup, he's decided to pick someone to officiate this match. Someone who, in his words, casts a shadow over both CM Punk and John Cena. Who is it, you might ask? Is it The Rock? Stone Cold? Mick Foley? No, it's Triple H himself. So you know what that means. Somebody's getting screwed this Sunday. So, we move on to our first match that Trips has announced. It will be Cena versus Jack Swagger. Before the match, Cena had some words with Trips about him being a special guest referee. Apparently he's not very much of a fan of it. So, this match is pretty much what you can expect out of a John Cena match. If you actually thought that Jack Swagger poses any kind of threat to John Cena, then you need to lay off the crack. So basically, John buries him, as much as you can bury a Jack Swagger at this point. Next, we get some Alberto Del Rio backstage goodness, as he has been announced to be CM Punk's opponent tonight. That I'm actually excited for. Next, we get some random R-Truth craziness, which apparently him going on a rant about how he hates spiders, and how he's going to stomp out John Morrison. Our next matchup, if you could call it that, is Rey Mysterio versus The Miz. Now, it was announced that Rey got his rematch next week in his hometown of San Diego, California, 619 country. But before he could come to the ring, he's jumped by The Miz. Now, from what I've heard on the internet, apparently Rey has a severe injury, so this is a way to take him out. Miz gets to the ring, and Michael Cole immediately jumps in the ring to suck his dick. Miz gets on the mic and says that he doesn't have a match this Sunday, which he should, because he's the most must-see champion in the WWE. So he orders a referee to come down to the ring and declare him the winner by default. The ref comes down, but says he's not going to do it. He talks to Tony Chimmel, and Chimmel says that by order of our esteemed boss, Mr. H's, Miz has a match tonight. Against who? Why, Kofi Kingston. Now, I've said this on the forums, and I will say it now. I actually was expecting this match to be a lot better than the match that Miz was going to have with Rey. Don't get me wrong, Rey Mysterio is a great athlete, but his age has been showing and his injuries are showing. And I have to agree with Muse from Reviewtopia. Rey is kind of boring to watch, really. You always know what to expect out of him. Even though it's some incredible aerial arsenal, you kind of know what to expect out of him. But anyway, this was a great match. Kofi and Miz really have great chemistry in the ring. It was with Kofi's high-flying style matches against Miz's ground and pound counter style. It was an excellent match, but in the end, Miz wins over Kofi clean. Good job, Miz. Next up, Punk has some backstage words before his match, as he talks about how Triple H loves the spotlight so much that he might as well be solar powered. Hail Punk. Anyway, we move on to our next match: Alberto Del Rio versus CM Punk. Now, this is a much better match than Swagger Cena that we had earlier tonight. ADR actually looks more like a legitimate threat. His whole style revolves around softening up his opponent's arm before using a cross arm breaker. Punk shows off why he's the champion, the true champion. And then he screams at ADR Destiny before hitting the go to sleep. There we have it. Next match. Mrs. Punk, aka Beth Phoenix, takes on Eve Torres. Now I'm enjoying her heel turn, and I'll tell you why after in a second. Beth pretty much makes short work of Eve Torres, beating her and then hitting the glam slam. She wins, and then she picks up a mic and she says that she's sick and tired of divas like Eve Torres making the divas division a complete joke. What she wants is no more splits, no more booty shaking, no more stink faces. Pretty much saying what all we've been saying about the divas for the last couple of years. That has become nothing more than a glorified sideshow. And I'm happy that Beth Phoenix is actually calling out on this. Because lately, the last couple of champs that we've had weren't known entirely for their being dominant wrestlers. Hell, Kelly can't even run the ropes. And speaking of Kelly, she decides to take a cue from Miz and attack Beth Phoenix from behind. And didn't even capitalize on it. For shame. Have you learned nothing from Evo, Kelly? You gotta punish. Next up, Dolph Ziggler versus Alex Riley. Riley gets in the ring and cuts a small promo on Vicky Guerrero. But unlike Jerry the King Lawler, he does not make fun of her weight. Instead, he says that her breath stinks so bad that it smells like death took a crap in your mouth. His words. The match is relatively short, only about a minute or two. All throughout the match, Vicky is screaming like a harpy at Riley on the ring apron until she finally gets in the ring and slaps him, getting Riley a DQ victory. She continues to scream and rant as Dolph Ziggler gets punched out by Alex Riley. Riley leaves and we see a falling out between Vicky and Dolph Ziggler. So it looks like he's finally taking his advice and dropping Vicky Guerrero. Hopefully he'll get better at drawing his own heat and his mic work because they're sorely lacking. Nothing against Ziggler. He's a great in-ring talent. He just needs to work on his skills. His mic skills. Next up, R-Truth versus John Morrison. Ultimate Crazy versus Unlimited Sexy. This is a very physical matchup. Both of them really just beating the ever-loving piss out of each other. But after taking a bad spill outside, injuring his neck, it was all R-Truth, and he wins. I don't know what they're doing with Morrison, but they really need to do something about him because since he's came back, he has not won a match. And that's sad. Christian does a small interview, ripping into Michael Cole, who tries to be friendly with him, and says that this Friday he has an announcement to make, and he hopes that our esteemed COO Triple H will be there in person to see it. Next, in our final segment, John Cena and CM Punk's contract signing. And once again, this was the best part of the motherfucking show. Punk starts out by of course pointing out that these contract signings usually end in some kind of violence. So he decides to have some footage of a movie star that talks about why John Cena is so unliked. That movie star? Dwayne, aka The Rock. The Rock appears on a video posted on his Facebook and pretty much rips John Cena apart, and even imitates his music. Standard Rock stuff, which I love. Punk then goes on to say that Cena is a big phony. Cena counters by pretty much talking about everything that everyone says about him, his 5 moves of doom and his PG rating and all this other stuff. He says that he doesn't care if people hate him. All he wants to do is he cares about the people that like him. Then he calls out Punk for being a phony himself, and Triple H concurs. Then the pipe bomb bursts as Punk goes on a tirade about Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis, who's in the ring right now. And he tells him, well, I'm such a coward, I'm a coward. I ran away. Well, how come did you tell Vladimir Kozlov to his face that you fired him? What about D.H. Smith? What about Chris Masters, who you let go, who spent the last year getting better and working his ass off? Did you say it in his face? And he brought up some good points. If you didn't know, last Friday, a lot of WWE superstars were let go. Among them, Chris Masters, Vladimir Kozlov, and D.H. Smith. And of course, Punk was irate about this. Then Cena puts a very deep and intense promo, saying that he counters back and saying that there's a lot of pressure on CM Punk. If he has no choice but to win, because if he doesn't, all of his fans will be gone, and he'll be nothing more than a one-hit wonder like James Buster Douglas or Milli Vanilli. Punk counters saying that he would rather be a one-hit wonder than a big fat phony. Cena decides, you know what, enough talking, let's fight. Punk concurs, and they cast their belts aside, remove the tables, and getting ready to fight. Then that dick face, that raspy voice fucker Johnny Ace gets involved, and he gets a kick from CM Punk for his trouble. Then Triple H tries to break it up, but he ends up on the wrong side of a Cena tackle. He and Cena get in each other's faces, and Punk leaves, claiming that there's some kind of collusion going on between them. And that's the end of Raw. My verdict? Good damn Raw. There were some pretty solid matchups. A nice lead in to SummerSlam coming up this week. We also got a nice little video package from the history of SummerSlam in SummerSlam 1991 between Bret the Hitman Hart versus the late great Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig for the Intercontinental title, a match that I fondly remember and I love to this day. The final promo at the end, gold, just gold. It went from a talk about who's gonna win or who's gonna beat who. It became something more like a psychological discussion about the state of professional wrestling, about the status quo, about certain norms and things. It's like it was a self-contained discussion of wrestling within wrestling. It was very interesting. Not only was it entertaining, but as a smart myself, it was very psychologically endearing, almost. It's like they were discussing things that we all thought, but never thought they would actually say. They talked about Cena being completely over, the 5 moves of doom, how everything is cliche, and how how things are going to be, as Triple H is going to screw somebody over, and it was just very interesting. I mean, you can actually learn a lot about professional wrestling from watching this promo. So, if you don't know much about professional wrestling and the ins and outs, watch this promo. It really does kind of just break the fourth wall and just show you, hey, this is how things are done. And that's what I like about Punk. He actually says what people talk about and people want to listen to. Like he said a couple of weeks ago, in his hands, a microphone is a pipe bomb. But yeah, that was Raw. That's my verdict. Tune in this Thursday when I review Thursday Night Impact. What will happen after Kurt Angle's apparent deception and his new reign as the new TNA World Champion? How will that affect Sting's plans of turning the company back over to Dixie Carter? We'll have to see about that. Until then, it's a shintigercurl, that dude in the straw hat, and Joe, saying good night and wrestle on.